not Tom Amiano's new bill. It's sort of a regurgitation of AB 2312, and it failed a very close vote in the Assembly. There's a lot going on right now behind the scenes, I believe, because it failed the vote just by 6 votes. So it was a very close vote. It failed. What did not fail was the Steinberg-Leno bill, which is now leaving the Senate and going to our state assembly. And its first stop is Public Safety Committee, which is actually headed by Tom Amiano. So patient advocates who oppose parts of Tom Amiano's proposal are very watching this very closely, because it could be the first time that he kind of gets to amend the Steinberg-Leno bill and maybe sneak in portions of his bill. And he's definitely saying publicly that he's going to get some sort of legislation that mimics what failed before the governor to sign. So we have to be really very hyper vigilant.
So, Sean, how do you think that the patients that we had call in opposition had any influence on them voting this down?
I don't know if it had any influence on voting it down. I think the people that had the most influence were the League of Cities. The League of Cities obviously, has a very strong lobby, and they oppose Tom Amiano's bill because they felt it wasn't strict enough, whereas patient advocates were more concerned that we didn't want to have just the businesses represented. We wanted to make sure that medicine was affordable and that everything was to scale, so that it wasn't just big pot that got the permits. We want to make sure that the small providers and the patients are able to publicly access their medicine. Right now, here in San Francisco, we have patients that still are not able to publicly access their medicine because of prohibition pricing. So I think our calls mattered in the point that we were recognized by Assembly Member Bill Quirk, who said that, publicly, that he was concerned that patients weren't consulted regarding Tom Amiano's bill. And patients really have yet to be consulted regarding either bill. They're really, kind of right now working with the industry players and law enforcement, so it's how do we get our voice in the door?
Well, it seems like I hear a lot of voices, even from our own community, that think we need to be more regulated and that we need to still be rescheduled instead of descheduled, and there's just a lot of factions that I think they've got all the facts where I think that we need to be descheduled. We're already over-policed. I don't think we need to be policed any more than beer brewers do.
Right, and I think that, one comparison that's been made is that the growers and the stores need separate pieces of legislation and also separate pieces in the permitting process, because if you look at it, agriculture is not the same permits as your corner grocery store. So we need to look at this in comparison to how other agricultural facilities work. Safeway is permitted differently than a small grocery store. So it all needs to come into scale and into proportion. I think we do need regulations. I'm pro-regulations, but I'm for regulations that people can comply with and that will lessen the amount of arrests and problems that occur, not just make legality possible for the 1%ers and the pop movement. We don't need that. I finally wanted to just also bring up something that's going on at the global level that I think is very important for patient advocates to be aware of, and that is that at sort of the United Nations level, there are, in the OAS, there are reviews going on about America's drug policy and what needs to change. And we have, I'm sure everybody's heard a little bit about the guy from Microsoft who wants to sort of create the Starbucks of the cannabis movement. But the interesting thing that occurred with the entrepreneur from Microsoft who is pro-cannabis is that he spoke with the president of Mexico, who wants to see greater regulation to stop the violence on the border. So now you have pressure from the South for the North to finally reform what we're doing. We've got, the global level of change going on. We have a global conversation that has been able to kind of reach the highest levels of international government to say this needs to be changed at this level as well. We now have a great situation where we have 75% of all Americans physicians saying that they would recommend medical cannabis to their patients who are suffering from things like cancer, needing cancer treatment, and etc. So the shift has happened for the people of the country. Now we have the leg in changing the law in Congress, and we definitely need to have Eric Holder take a look at what's going on with the Department of Justice and them really making an unfair application of law. And the unfair application of law I'm talking about is they're using the sentencing guidelines that were constructed for basically well, I'll just say it, for crack houses near schools. And that is really crazy because we are permitted by our local governments. We have been vetted by our local communities, and we're nothing like the illegal drug cartels and etc. We're responsible players at local and the state level. We're paying our taxes. We're involved in our local communities and contributing to our local communities. So it's really important that our city really does file suit against U.S. Attorney Melinda Haag for an unfair application of the law. Meaning that, these landowners who rent to the cannabis dispensaries are being threatened for the 40 years imprisonment, which is just outrageous. 40 years imprisonment for a state legal and city permitted is outrageous. And so I do believe there's a way for us to be able to rectify the situation and have, Nancy Pelosi is our representative in San Francisco at a congressional level. And we are very lucky for that because she's probably the closest person to President Obama, and a way to really show him, hey, look, these U.S. attorneys are not doing the right thing. So, the more help that we can get, the better. At the local level, we're also looking into getting up to City Hall next Tuesday and making sure that our voices are heard. It's looking like we've got some support from a few supervisors. We've got a new supervisor on board with the medical cannabis movement, Supervisor Marr, who traditionally is known as a liberal/progressive. And he honored Kathleen Capetti, who was running the hemp center in his Richmond district, and just did a wonderful job commending not only her service to the medical cannabis community.
Hey, you're on SFLiberalBuzzE.
Hello?
Hello, we hear you.
Yes, I wanted to find out if there's anything the city of San Francisco can do about the harassment of the clubs, the cannabis clubs in the city.
Good question. There's only a few routes that I think we can take, and the most important route is for our city to file suit against the U.S. Attorney for unfair application of the law, and perhaps a few other legalities, because this really boils down to bullying, and everyone in America right now is against bullying, and
People of color.
everybody's against bullying, especially in making threats. And basically what the U.S. attorneys are doing is they're trying to take a big poop in the punch bowl and have all of the landlords in the Bay Area afraid to rent to the cannabis community. Totally unfair method. So we're hoping that Supervisor Marr and Supervisor Campos are going to have a discussion with our city attorney, Dennis Herrera, who has always been 110% behind medical cannabis.
Hi, you're on the air. SFLiberalBuzzE.
Hello. My question was, in terms of what San Francisco can do for its funds that is permitted, and the federal attack on them, why isn't Nancy Pelosi, since she is our congressional representative, couldn't she take a stronger stance on this?
She can take a stronger stance on this. Thank you for that question. Here's the sort of inner skinny. The person that we've worked with successfully in Nancy Pelosi's office is, if you remember, she has come out several times against the crackdowns in the past, is Mr. Dan Bernal. And the inner skinny on that is right now he's on the AIDS ride, and he will be back in his office on Tuesday, and we really need help. We need people to call their Congress office. You know, it can't just be Shona calling up Dan and saying, hey, we really need help. Well, they need to hear from more constituents, and they need to hear that this is unfair. Our city has the best regulations in the country. There's no reason for any dispensary to receive a federal letter.
No, I think that cannabis should be in the hands of everyone that needs or wants it. I don't see why there are any restrictions in there.
Maybe it's time for Pelosi to enter a bill to legalize, or can she do that? Is that in her power?
It is in her power. There are a couple bills on the floor right now. One of the most important bills on the congressional level would help the medical cannabis states deal with our banking issues. And if folks don't know, we've been kicked out of the financial institutions that have federal connections. And what happens with that is, even when we're going to pay our state taxes, our providers are bringing in bags of cash, you know. And so what we're looking to do is be able to work with state credit unions and local credit unions. I'm even going to propose that in San Francisco we work with a police credit union so that we can, you know, be able to account for and block off the audits by the IRS, which is another front that we're attacked on.
Well, yeah, because San Francisco is a sanctuary city for medical cannabis. We should have some sort of protection.
Absolutely. We are one of the 2 sanctuary cities for medical cannabis on our planet. We definitely should be the ones at the helm of this fight with our Northern District U.S. Attorney Melinda Haag. You know, there's no reason why Pelosi cannot get on the phone to U.S. Attorney Haag and say, listen, I really disapprove of what you're doing, and you are bullying my constituents, and this has to end, and I am going to be speaking with President Obama. That's what we need to have happen. We need to have her cited with misconduct.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, Melinda Haag and the other one, Michelle Lanhart.
Michelle Lanhart of the DEA is just another appointment that should have never happened.
Obama, he got the progressive vote. He's a perfect example of progressives being used by moderates.
I agree in a certain sense. You know, I think that him and Eric Holder have pushed forward really important things. such as, the examining of the sentencing guideline disparity between powdered cocaine and crack cocaine, and how poor people were ending up in jail and rich people with lawyers were walking away. And if you that's something that is really, this needs to be looked at through the same lens. Our landlords are being threatened with 40 years imprisonment. That's ridiculous. That doesn't happen in any other circumstance. There's laws on the book from a congressional act in 1939 called the Hecht Act, which tell the U.S. attorneys that they cannot be basically making arrests and making judgments based on a political motivation. And this is political. This is a moralistic attack.
Well, we've got 52% of the people in favor of this, so I don't really feel adequately represented.
We are actually beyond the 52%. We're actually at the point where we're nearing 99%. I mean, when 8 out of 10 now Americans say that they support, that's huge.
Then are we living in a dictatorship?
I think we're living in a situation where there's a congressional lag, where the legislators of our country have not caught up with the people's intent with this.
So what can the viewers do? Let's tell them in 1 minute that we've got left. What can the viewers do? The Congress people, what website do they go to write to them or call them?
Well, the most important thing to do is call if you live in San Francisco, your congressional representative is Nancy Pelosi, and all you need to do is call her office and ask for Dan Bernal, who deals with her policy concerning drug policy in America. He's a great person. And then the other thing folks could do that would really help us out is coming up to City Hall for public comment next Tuesday and expressing your rage and concern and want to take legal action against the U.S. attorneys that are, again, closing down clubs in San Francisco. And this turn of the battle, they are taking out one of the longest providers in our city's history, which is the Hemp Center. They've been providing since, the 1990s. So, I mean, this is something that we all need to get our voice in.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, folks.
Know that our District 1, Richmond District, Hemp Center, and many others in the city are facing, and throughout the Bay Area, are facing attacks by and the threat of closure by the federal government. But I wanted to focus on the incredible positive effects you've had on the Richmond District and the city. Colleagues, Kathleen Petty is a California native. She's a pioneer of the medical cannabis movement. She is by trade an accountant who filed the first resale permit with the Marin Alliance in 1997 for medical cannabis in California. And then a year later, in 1998, she reopened CHAMPS, which is Cannabis Helping Alleviate Medical Problems, which is a historic cannabis club in San Francisco. And the following year, she opened the Hemp Center in the Richmond District. There, she's served patients for 14 years with the support and respect of her neighbors. She's the longest-standing compassionate provider in San Francisco. Yes. And many of the practices we consider some of the best practices in that industry come from her pioneering efforts and her staff as well. The Hemp Center on Erie Boulevard at 12th Avenue has worked for many years with City Hall on public safe access issues. Her contributions to society at large are also worthy of mention, as her name is engraved on Montgomery, Alabama's Wall of Tolerance for her efforts with the Southern Poverty Law Center, the NAACP, and the ACLU as well. She's also sponsored Children's Safety and Literacy in Africa and a school in Jamaica, which she's a tremendous humanitarian as well. Kathleen states that she couldn't have served her members so long and so well without her caring staff, Richard Vinola, Jesse Heston, and Sasha Mimsky. And she's the mother of 4 people, young people, and she cares for her adult son who is disabled and also a proud grandmother as well. So I'd like to offer you and join me in commending Kathleen Petty at the Hemp Center. Kathleen.
Thank you so much. going on for a long time, and no doubt we've got a lot more work to do. And you kind of thanked everybody I was going to thank, so all I can really say is that when we opened, the research wasn't being allowed on medical cannabis. And so we opened just knowing in our hearts that it was effective medicine. And so all these many years later, it's gratifying to know that we're correct, even though it would seem that the federal government hasn't quite caught up with us yet. So we will continue to work. We're looking for a new location, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with the city on this and the medical marijuana community and serving the patients. Thank you.
We got a letter recently that was kind of had bad news in it. Can you tell me anything about it?
Well, the latest tactic is the federal government is sending letters to the landlord and to the bank, okay, so that holds the mortgage for the commercial properties, and having the loans called in if they don't evict us.